Hi, I'm Son of Ashes, and this is the Shawk23 Podcast by creatives for creatives.
Hi, I'm Shawk23, and this is the Shawk23 Podcast. This is the podcast by creatives for creatives, where I interview other creatives and we get to share our knowledge and our experience. Today, my guest is none other than Travis Ellison, aka Son of Ashes. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chan. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm excited as well. I am low-key a big fan of yours, and I get an opportunity to chat with you for almost an hour, hopefully, if all goes well.
If all goes well.
And we have stuff to talk about. But before we get into the show, a word from our official sponsors. The Shawk23 Podcast is proudly sponsored by Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. Smart Hills Corporate Solutions provide IT solutions for corporate businesses and creatives like myself. They provide a wide range of products and services and are certified resellers of software such as Microsoft Office, Adobe Creative Cloud, Wondershare, and more. To find out more, please visit their website on www.smarthills.com.pg. Now back to the show. And we're back. Now, tell me about yourself, Travis.
Well, as you said, my name is Travis Ellison. I am 21 years old. I am a full-blown creative. Everything I do these days is just creative. So much. Yeah, I do everything creatively. And I'm an actor. I also do graphic design. I also paint. And amongst other things that I can't
What don't you do?
What don't I do?
Yeah. Do you rap and sing as well?
I used to in high school.
Ooh.
And I'll be honest, it was corny.
We all started somewhere. But yeah, Travis has been a digital artist and an artist on his own, and he's been making waves, especially this year. This has been a big year for you.
It has been, yeah.
And I'm very excited. I've always been a big fan of your work and your art because it's very unique. And you have a special name for your art style. You call it what? What is it called?
I call it chaos lines.
Chaos lines. Why is it called chaos lines?
Because it's not just like basic line art where it's just one line all throughout. It's like a combination of so many lines, and it's like it's a cultivation over the years. I brought so many styles into my art.
Okay.
And so this is basically it. Yeah, chaos lines.
Where does that inspiration for that kind of art style, or your art style in general?
My art style in general.
It's very trippy.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's a little trippy. It's a little out there. Yeah.
That's kind of why I like it. I tend to keep an eye out for people who have very unique art styles, because that's the word. That's what creativity means. It's like thinking outside the box. And sometimes you get used to everybody doing the same thing, and then someone comes and just does something completely different. And then, that's where I really relate, and I really truly enjoy your art. Where does it all come from?
Well, it goes back to when I was a kid. My dad is a cartographer. He's a surveyor.
Okay.
And he deals with maps.
Oh, okay.
And essentially those contour maps, those contour lines. Oh man, I used to walk into my dad's office and it would just be filled with all these maps. And I would be so entranced. And I'd see the different designs, and like I'd literally see faces, and I'd imagine entire stories in these maps. And then it didn't really, the seed got planted in my head when I was young. And then I started,
Like, how old were you?
Well, my dad's been a surveyor for about over 30 years. So, like, as soon as I started really starting to register things around me, that's when I just started cultivating this art style. And then, obviously, I was fortunate enough to go to these schools that built different areas of kids' lives.
Okay.
I did extracurricular activities. I started drama when I was very young, and painting as well, and drawing. So that started young. But obviously, when you're younger, you stick to the main framework of how you're supposed to draw.
Okay,
color within the lines.
Just
so it was very basic stuff,
the fundamentals.
So I learned the fundamentals way back when I was younger. And then as I got into high school and I started, experiencing life as an artist should, I started, I brought back this influence of my dad's maps and these contour lines. And then it would always be just one simple line. And then eventually I started adding more, and then I added more emotion to it. And I expressed more of my thoughts onto these art pieces. So, and then by the time I got to university, that 1 year when I was in university.
Which university was that?
The University of Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
Would you like me to talk about that now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so when I got into uni, that's when because So straight from high school,
Yep.
went into university. I chose political science as my major.
Okay.
Because I loved politics, and I still do, and I'm very intrigued by it. So when you go to university, there's so much, like, it's so different from high school.
Yeah.
And I didn't expect that, and there was so many things that I went through mentally, and like there was so many influences that I got. Right?
Okay.
All throughout that 1 year. And then it influenced my art.
And then you're a first-year student as well. Yeah,
and there's so much to adjust to. Because like, the good thing about uni is that no one tells you what to do. The bad thing is no one tells you what to do. So, that hit me so hard, and then I experienced so much more, and life just hit me, and it was so great. It was good. I saw the good side of it because I got more inspiration, more influence to do my art. And then by the end of the year, I saw your art. I saw, Chan's art, and it was
interesting.
I would just scroll through your page, and it would just be so like intriguing that, oh, this man is actually like making a living out of this, and it influenced me a lot. So then I used to draw, and then I had roommates and friends that would come by and see my sketchbooks, and they'd be like, oh, you should really do something. So that really motivated me to create that Instagram page. And when I first started, the Instagram page was just called Chaos Lines. Okay. That's all it was. And then I would just post lines, like just line art about different things. It would just be a face.
This was in your sketchbook, yes?
In my
sketchbook. You didn't do the digital side?
I had no clue about Adobe. I've never done graphic art before that. It was all just painting and sketching. So I'd sketch that, and I'd just take a picture. Wouldn't even edit it. No filters, nothing. Just post it. I'd get like 5 likes in 3 weeks. And it would be great too. Like just 5 people liking it. Wow. Exactly. That meant a lot.
Especially if you're someone who's very private about your art.
Oh yeah.
Are you like that? Like, because I'm just like, everything was to myself. And when I started to post, like that kind of hit me. It's like, oh, okay. People actually like what I do.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, personally, I was fortunate enough to grow in environments that influenced me in a very positive way. My parents put me in schools that like really cultivated talents, and like they put me through music school, music classes, acting classes, and like painting and sketching classes, right? So even though I went through all of that, I was still kind of secretive and private about my own art and my personal style, because again, it didn't fit the main the fundamentals of what art should be. At least you're
just self-conscious of what other people
very
would
self-conscious,
think.
And I didn't like. So when I got those 5 likes, it was huge to me. Yeah. So then I'd keep posting, and then by the end of the year, I made the decision to like take a gap year. Okay. And really find myself.
What year was this?
This was 2021. So I graduated.
Last year.
Yeah, I graduated.
The year before.
The year before.
Mate, we live in the future, Chan. We live in the future.
Right. So I graduated from Paradise High School in 2020. And then I went straight into political science, uni, UPNG. And then by the end of the year, I went through like, just, like I said, life, blah, blah, blah. Uni, the freedom, the distractions, and all that. So by the end of the year, I told my father, I think I'm going to take a gap year. Yep. And I'm going to go home. I'm going to go to East New Britain, Rabaul. Yep. I'm going to spend just a couple months there. I thought it was going to be a couple months, turned into 9. Ooh. Yeah. Just on and off, going back there. So, and then by the end of the year, I already posted like at least about 20 posts. And like, I wasn't really, it was just another side thing, just to express myself in another medium. So by the end of the year, I was just told my dad. So we went to Rabaul the next year. And then it didn't click in 2021 that the next year was going to be elections. Okay. National general elections. Yep. Now, obviously I like politics. I like all of that stuff. So then when I realized when I was there in Rabaul, I was like, oh man, this is something that I can actually watch in person, right? And by 2022, 2021, I was 20 years old. So my dad, we had a relative who was like running in the elections. Yep. So throughout those months and those weeks, I was there in person, going through to all the booths, the counting places, the voting, all those. I was also part
you were just sinking deep into
sinking deep, and I went through all these different areas in Eastern Britain that I never went to when I was younger, and I experienced so many sides of politics and how politics affects the people and how people affect the politics. Of course, in that 1 year in uni, I learned a lot about politics, but being there in person and experiencing the struggles and how people actually perceive politics from like a local standpoint, a rural standpoint, it changed my perspective a lot. And I went through this like metamorphosis of like, oh man, like this is what my people go through, and this is how politics changes them. And it was really, it was a slight epiphany, to be honest. So, and then throughout those weeks and months, I didn't do any art. Like it just wasn't, like for about 4 months, I wasn't doing any art. So it completely fell off. And I was nowhere to be seen. I was off the grid. And then just one random day, I was at the beach. This sounds very surreal, but I was at the beach and I started sketching, and I started taking a TikTok. I started taking a video. And then by the end, I was like, oh man, I actually have a TikTok account. In uni, I started a TikTok account, but I didn't really, go full on with it. So I came back to Palm. It was still 2022. Yeah, last year. Came back, and then I was in my room, and then 2 of my friends came over. They saw my art again. They were like, bro, start a TikTok page, post this, take a video. So I sat there. They were sitting behind me. They were just playing video games or whatever. And I started sketching. I took a video. I posted it. And like, I'll say it blew up, but not in like the billions or millions. It was just like, a couple thousand people.
That's a lot though. That's a lot. For a TikTok. For my first TikTok too. And it was like, whoa. Ooh, okay. And it was, I just drew this celebrity. His name's Brent Fayaz. And it was like one of my favorite artists, musical artists. I sketched him. I posted it. And I was like, whoa, 2,000 people? That's already? Huge.
Right?
That's huge.
And like, it was in a span of like a couple days in like 1 week. And I was like, oh man, I was blown away. So I was like, all right. Inspiration. Now, obviously, as an artist, you shouldn't do everything for the validation of other people. But
it's good.
But it's good.
It's good to know that.
It's a very good feeling to know that people actually connect with something that is very personal and private to me. Right.
And I think part of us, like as artists, we search for that validation in a way. Like, am I as good as I think I am? Like, we kind of question our skills and just what we do. And for someone else to be like, in agreement with what we think, and especially if that turns out to be like a huge, like so many likes or so many reshares and so many people's lives are just affected by it. Like kind of just change your perception of who you are as an artist and gives greater meaning, I think, to the art that we create.
And like, it feels good to affect people, and like to any extent, it feels good just to be like part of their lives or affect their perspective in some way. And like,
especially when, you hear their interpretation of it. Like sometimes it's not like you create it in a way that's just the way that you do it. And then they see it and they find their own story and they see it in a very different angle. That's one of the most fulfilling things I love about art is just when people, they take what you've created and then interpret it in that way. And then you're like, oh, okay, I never saw it that way. But it's interesting that you think this way and you see things that way.
And that first video alone, when I posted it, there was like a couple comments there. I mean, obviously people were saying, oh, it's great. It's fire, a couple emojis. And there were a couple of people who like really posted like long paragraphs of how they felt about it. And in my mind, I was like, oh, but this is just a sketch. Like there was really no complexity to it that I added, but they saw it. And that was like surprising to me. So I made a couple more. I kept making those videos and it got more likes and shares and whatnot. Now, in high school, I did a lot of poetry. There was a lot of poetry competitions, and I love poetry, specifically slam poetry.
Okay.
So I kind of integrated that to some of my TikTok videos, and people love that as well. And then I started like seeing this little community of this little niche of people who who do poetry and who also sketch and who also paint. And then some people were like, oh, you should put it on shirts. We'd certainly buy that. So then, it was still my gap year, so I was still trying to figure things out. And like, oh, the New Year's coming around. It was about September, November. I was thinking, oh, what should I do now? Should I go back and do my second year, or should I continue doing what I'm doing, or doing side work, or actually go out into the workforce and look for a job?
Get a real job.
Gotta get a real job. Some stability.
Yeah.
So and then by the end of the year, I was already getting traction and I started like doing more graphic art. Now, when I say graphic art, I don't mean actual graphic art. I downloaded this app, just a simple app on my Android phone. It's called Logo Maker.
Okay.
Exactly. And you basically make logos with it. And then I started. There was so many options in this app that like I used to actually create graphic art and there was so many filters that I could use, and so I started adjusting my sketches to it and then posting it on Instagram, and then people started seeing that too, and I love how it looked aesthetically to add more like different like be more mixed with it. Like it's not just one simple sketch; it's like a different layer to it. So I did that, and that like it just inspired me even more. Not only because people started liking it, but because it gave me another medium to express myself rather than just talking about it or just like painting or doing poetry. It's something that I didn't even have to talk. It just came from my mind, straight to my hand, down on the paper, and that's it. And then everything else, I just posted it. And then by the end of the year, I realized that like everything that you can do is just sketching, editing or whatever, putting it on like making it graphic and then posting it.
Yeah.
Anything after that is not in your control because there was some posts that I did like didn't get as much likes than the others.
Yes.
And then obviously and then I started realizing, okay, I got to step back from this whole perception of like, oh, I have to
get the likes.
Exactly.
It's art for the gram.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's how
it really started getting to me, and I was like, oh man, I got to take a step back from this. I need to do things that are for me. And then because my art is kind of out there, and I do sketches that are really dark. And there was some sketches that I posted that like people were just like they didn't
respond well to it.
It wasn't received well. And then I also started considering that it's like, oh, so there's like a limit to this.
Yeah.
But in my mind, and I've always had this perception, it's like there's no limit to art. But then I started like considering their opinion, which really affected my perception, and then I really slowed down again. So it's really been this up and down experience of like, oh, there's life, there's the things that my parents' opinion, and then school and getting a job, finding some stability.
Yeah.
And thankfully, by the end of last year, my parents really started seeing that the opportunities that I had, right, and the opportunities that I could find in pursuing this. So, and then art activism came about.
Yep.
And a couple of the first shows was last year.
Okay.
And I did some poetry, and I also I finally printed out some of my art.
Okay. Yes.
And again, all of these art that I printed out was from that logo app, right? So people thought that I was doing it on Adobe Illustrator and all these great apps. And I was like, no, I didn't even tell them that. I was just, I found a way.
It's just tools of the trade.
I didn't even want to explain it too much. And then when they came around, they saw my art being displayed at the Mosby Arts Theater. They kept asking me, oh, what does this mean? What does this mean? And then I got to a conclusion. It's like, you know what? I'll just let you decide what it means. So whenever people ask, I would like, okay, what do you think? What's your perception of it? Exactly.
Because sometimes you just doodle.
Yeah, yes, basically.
Some days you just like...
Sometimes the feeling came.
Yeah.
I did that in less than 30 minutes, and then
sometimes you were just like distracting yourself, and then you create something. It's like, oh, okay. And then people think there's a deeper meaning to it. It's like, no, you figure it out. Exactly. You tell your story out. Yeah.
It's your perception. So around August of last year, it was, I think...
So it's like 1 year from over, like it's September now.
Yeah, it's basically been 1 year since then. And Art Activism had one of their shows, and then I had an art piece up. And it was one of my most beloved piece. Okay. And it was like the first, like, when I printed
Precious.
it, Precious, and I looked at it and I'm like, I did this. I was so proud of myself. So I framed it. I bought the most expensive frame I could find with the savings that I had, and then I put it up for like a display at the Mosby Arts Theater. And there were these diplomats, these tourists that came from America, and they saw it and they were like, they loved it instantly. And then she was like, the lady that bought it, she was like, oh, how much is this? I didn't have a price. I was just proud of myself.
You weren't expecting to sell. I
wasn't expecting that. I was just like, oh, we're just displaying our art here.
No intention to sell your art that night?
No intention back then. Even until the end of the year, I was still like, whoa, I can make money off this? Even though I had you as an example to like, putting your art out there and making money off it, I still didn't believe that. So when she asked, I was like, oh, 50 kina? Oh my God. And then she was surprised. Thankfully, she was a very generous lady. So she literally took a step back and like, 50 kina for this? This is so beautiful. And I was just flattered. And then, so I thankfully, I thought quickly, and I was like, okay, what's your price? And then she was like, no, what's your price? And then my friends were standing all the way at the back. They started taking their phones out. Oh man, is this going to be the first one he's going to sell? And then I was like, okay, let's go 100. And she's like, okay, you can do better. 150, you can do better. I climbed to like 250, and she was like, a little more. And then I went 300, and then she was like, all right, sell it there. And oh my days, and that was just, I wanted to cry right in front of her. But obviously I had to be, very first, and obviously I had to be professional about it. And I was like, oh,
but inner you was like,
my inner me, I was like, oh my God, gratification.
I know.
Yeah.
That's such a great feeling.
Exactly. Because that piece took me longer than most. It took me like 3 weeks to like really complete and really like be satisfied with it. So when she said 300, she literally went to a wallet, took the money out, paid for it, she took it, and she left. All my friends were there. I was looking at my friends. We were all just like, oh my days. Anyways, took the video, and then after that, I was just so inspired. I kept doing more, and I still didn't come around to really printing my art until going to November, December of the year last year, and then that's when
it's a strategic time, like Christmas, holiday.
Yeah, Christmas. Yeah, people exactly. And then I had a friend who wanted me to create Christmas cards in my art style, which was like flattering in itself. Like, you want it in my art style as well. So yeah, and then I started really printing, and then it started selling. I didn't have a set price, and then I asked a friend how much I should sell it for.
Yep.
And they said, okay, you should go to 100 kina, and then maybe make it negotiable. You know, you don't want to scare away your customers. And by then I had enough traction to, really sell. So I posted some, and I at below the caption of every picture, I would say, oh, it's on sale. And then people started buying it. And that was, it just created a good flow for me. And then
you're still doing that. You're still selling your art.
I'm still selling my art even until today. So like by the end of the year, I was pretty confident about my art style and what I could do. And then like I said, I do like other art forms as well, like acting. And because I've been acting for so long, my parents really got so influenced that they told me, okay, this is something you can pursue.
Okay.
It's something you can, make a living off of.
So you're doing this full time?
I'm doing this full time. I completely left university, and I'll tell you this much: the change from just like having this stability of in the institution, high school, university, and then coming off it is just, man.
Welcome to entrepreneurship.
Exactly.
Welcome to the climb.
And then now my dad has like his own company. He's self-employed, and I've seen him like go through all these struggles of like having your own company and dealing with people and like trying to establish something for yourself. So I've always had that example. And like I said, I've been surrounded by people who influence me in a positive way. So having someone like my father, it really really pushed me basically. So by the end of the year, I told him this is something I want to pursue. And
did they take it well?
My dad, I mean, obviously your parents are a little cautious. And my mom instantly, she was like, are you sure about this? Is this something you really want to do? My dad too said the same thing. But thankfully they both saw like my passion. And I've always been passionate about all these art forms. So they both agreed, and then here we are. There've been so many.
That's a really huge blessing to have people and family who are supporting you to pursue your own dreams and your passions. Because not a lot of people have that.
Not a lot of people. I know.
So if you have the opportunity, definitely grab it by all means.
And I do understand. I understand how fortunate I am, and I take every day I wake up. I'm like so blessed to have like a family like that who can support me and like be my rock. Thankfully, they still let me sleep at their house, which is great, and it removes a lot of expenditures from my bills.
There you go. Welcome to entrepreneurship. That's how we do. That's how we roll.
Exactly. And then since then, I've like taken part in so many projects, and then I started having conversations with you, and then we've had this project.
Yes, we've had collaborations recently.
Yes, and that's something that I learned as in like being in a full blown artist is collaborations really help you.
Yep.
Not only in like like giving your talent to other people, but also receiving knowledge and understandings of like different art forms.
That's basically how this industry is actually functioning. Is that everybody's collaborating, because you can't do anything, and especially art and creativity is just too big and too different and too broad for one person to occupy and to dominate. It's really hard.
It's really hard.
And then you have to consider your audience and your customers. Everybody has different tastes and everybody has different goals and visions. And certain people need certain things. So it has to be a back and forth. Otherwise, we're not gonna function properly, I think. Yeah. My opinion, not standard. No,
of course.
Not the word, not the law. It's just an opinion.
I understand, yeah.
But like, I think you talked about like how you struggle to price your artwork. And I think that's something that a lot of creatives face, is just putting an actual value on our own art. And then not only that, but it's the realization that we're worth something. And then how much should that worth be?
Exactly.
And then how much is your work worth? How much are the hours that you put in to create the art and to do all of this? Like, how much is that worth to the customer?
Yeah, exactly.
And then navigating all of that. Yeah, that's an interesting...
the imposter syndrome.
Then there's the internal conflict, like, am I good enough? Am I worth
That's the final conflict to get over all the time.
An interesting thing about imposter syndrome that I've discovered is that, I think I saw it on TikTok, it's imposter syndrome is when who you think you are and who you're becoming are in conflict. So as you sell and as you get better as an artist and as you get good, you're becoming better. But then who you think you are, that image of you that resides in your mind, he's not comfortable. That's why change and growth is very uncomfortable to us, because we're becoming different, and who we used to be or who we think we are, it's constantly trying to bring us. So that's where like things like procrastination and self-sabotage can just inject themselves, and that imposter syndrome just comes creeping and be like, are you sure you're good enough? And then it's interesting that we as creatives and artists, we go through all of that, not just the external thing, but also the internal struggle, the conflicts as well.
That imposter syndrome and all those other mental struggles that artists go through, it really happens when you finally make the decision to pursue it fully. Yeah. I was like, there was university, and then there was last year, the gap year. And that's when I had to discover myself and all that. But this year, I'm really putting all my cards down for this. And that's when I really started experiencing all that doubt and that, that self-loathing.
It's the pushback. Exactly.
And then I also realized this other thing where, as an artist, you also have to have this time of like boredom, of like just doing nothing. Nothing is good as well. Nothing is good for like, just sitting down and thinking is also is a great thing.
Especially like I've had a lot of I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and TED Talks about the power of just being boredom, especially in this day and in this time where social media, like everything is fighting for your attention, and like people's attention span are going shorter and shorter and shorter, and we always feel this need to be stimulated. When we're waiting at the bus stop, we must listen to music. When we're walking, we have to watch something. I've seen people at the gym, like they put their phone, they're watching a show while they're running on a treadmill. Like nobody has time to be silent and just to be bored. And I think a lot of artists and a lot of people who are great right now, who were born pre-social media and this all days, they have a different work ethic to people now, because
perspective altogether.
Exactly, because they didn't have all those distractions. I think all the technology and all the digital things that are happening right now are great, but they also have the downside of distracting us from everything. And then
everything has a bad side as well.
And then there's this like shiny new object syndrome where you're pursuing and you want to be great at one thing, and then something becomes trendy, and then you want to jump onto that as well. That is something
that I'm constantly struggling with, is because I do all these other art forms. And then like I think earlier this year I just thought, oh man, like if I keep going, like stretching myself out to all these different art forms, I'm going to be average at everything. And that's why I'm putting more of my cards now into graphic art and the like painting and all this and all these projects.
And just really zoning
into it, because I keep putting myself in different areas, and I'm just making myself average at everything.
So I wanted to ask is that like, how do you deal with your different audiences? Because I think you've noticed by now that your artwork, the art that you do and that you sell, they cater to a particular audience. But when you're doing graphic design, you cater to another audience as well. How do you deal with all of that, or how are you finding that?
I realized that earlier on as well, because like I said, I used to post sketches, and then I went into graphic, and then I also started posting my paintings. And now different people have different tastes. So some people like the minimalistic stuff that I did. Some people like the coloring and the graphic design, and others like the abstract paintings that I did. So basically what I did was just post on my stories, post on everything, all my platforms, that, okay, these are the prices. This is what I do for that. I just add links to everything. I also have a LinkedIn.
Linktree.
Linktree. Yeah. Yes, there's a link tree, and then my TikTok page, and then there's Instagram. So those are the different like options that I gave people and then when it came to selling my art, again, I made things also a little negotiable, especially for people who like different art forms. So when people wanted prints, I told them, okay, this is the set. When it came to prints, it's set because there's a set price for printing wherever I go and print, and frames and all the other materials, and then there's my time and effort into all these things. So that's his own price, and it's always fixed. When it comes to my painting, everything changes because there's always.
Are these commission pieces?
Commission pieces. So I've done pieces for corporate houses, for personal, for individuals, and then for teams and like families and all that. So when it came to that, it would always be like a rate, or just I would also ask
like an hourly rate,
like an hourly rate. Yeah. So it would be like a 25 an hour or something like that, and then so yeah, and then when we couldn't really negotiate, I would just ask them, okay, what would you offer? So that's another skill that you also have to learn as an entrepreneur, is negotiating. Yeah, and it's a really what do you call that, complex thing, and very time consuming as well. Yeah, like you really have to spend some time alone to actually maybe look up videos and watch YouTube videos about how to negotiate properly and all that. So that's something that I had to there's a whole set of skills that I had to pick up as well. And then when it came to my graphic design, obviously people love that these days, especially because of social media. So like I said, I used to use the logo app, and then eventually you have to stop using an app and you have to branch out into more apps that are created for you as a creative. So then Adobe Illustrator came into mind. I have a friend, his name is Teo. Shout out to Teo. I couldn't download it and I couldn't buy it. So I asked him, oh, do you have Adobe Illustrator? And I was like, yeah, bro, come on down. I went to his house, he gave it to me on a flash drive. And since then, it was like November last year. And like, if you asked me in November last year if I could do anything in Adobe or all these graphic designs that I can do now, no clue whatsoever. So I got it, I went home, and I just instantly just started watching YouTube videos. And so
it's just relearning again.
Relearning, and then I didn't realize how much of a skill set you need to learn these learn these apps, because there's always different options, different templates to use and all that.
And then the workflow is different.
Workflow, exactly. And then you have to worry about, oh, how am I going to do this in time for this deadline? And then there was a job I did for human rights. There was a human rights film festival that was going to be hosted in December, and I got the app in November. And they asked me because they saw my art. And
this was last year.
This was last year. And all my art was, based off of that logo app. And they asked me, oh, we love can you do other graphic designs? And I instantly just said, yes, I can. I can. I'm a yes man. And so they gave me the job and it's like, oh, can you do a poster? And we'll print it on shirts and everything. And I didn't really know how to negotiate. So I just asked them for the price. They gave me the price. And for about 3 weeks, I was learning, going back and doing it, learning, watching YouTube videos, going back, designing. And then by the end, I didn't know how to color.
Okay.
Which is like, yeah.
That's interesting.
Exactly. I didn't know how to, because I knew how to, there was a pen tool.
Color on Illustrator?
On Illustrator.
Oh, okay.
Now, because
I don't like color for just color.
No. So yeah, and then, because I did the line work.
Because everything is shape-based.
Exactly.
Yeah, you have to do shapes.
So I knew how to do the line work. I used the pen tool. It was just one brush and I just did all that. And even back then, I was just using the mouse. I didn't have the pen, which made it so much more difficult.
But then for that, Illustrator is the best one, because the pen tool, if you're using the pen tool, the mouse, still a different. You just have to get accurate with the...
So what I did was...
You just have to sacrifice the feel of a pen and the accuracy.
Yeah. And it was so strange to me to just you move it around like this. So what I did was I sketched it. I outlined it with ink, and then I put it on Illustrator. I image traced it.
Yep.
So I made it, black and white. And then I started using the brush and everything just to touch up and everything. So I made it a shape, and then I still didn't know how to color it. And there was 2 days left. I was not confident at all. So I called my friend Teo, the one who's gave me the app. And then I told him, bro, and like I said, collaboration.
Yeah.
I don't know how to color. Can you do this for me? I sent it to him, and he sent it back to me the next morning. saved my
on
life.
Illustrator as well.
On Illustrator as well.
There you go.
Exactly.
That's
And then
the power of collaboration,
exactly.
Right?
And then I realized, you need to use email to like send things over and like for that quality and all that. So that was, like I said, experience.
That's a whole. That's why I'm kind of really excited that this podcast exists, because I think the creative and the artistic style is easy for us.
Exactly.
It's just in our wheelhouse, but then it's just the business side and the sales and negotiation and the communication skills that you need if you want to actually pursue this as a career choice.
Now,
like,
I thought I was extroverted enough to communicate with people, but then, like you said, there's different people, different levels to society that you have to adjust to. So then I couldn't just talk to someone like a friend, and then there was another person, like a corporate person. You have to talk to them in a certain way so that they can understand you and respect you at the same time to listen to whatever you have to say.
I have a business persona. Like, I switch him on.
Code switches
when it comes to corporate people. Business,
my English is top tier.
My email language is so different.
I do not stutter. It's just word for word, bar for bar.
I feel like that's why people look at me weird. Like, who are you? Who are you? And it's like, man, I'm whoever I want you to be in the moment.
So when I talk to all these people, and then when I go home, and that's why, like I said, being bored and like just being by yourself is also a very good thing, because you're dealing with all these people just for you to just create. You do all these things just so you can have that space so you can create. So sitting by yourself and thinking about it, processing everything is such a good thing to do for yourself.
Especially when as you continue to grow, the demand grows as well. Like your time is
limited.
It starts to get limited.
And then I hate turning down jobs.
Oh, okay.
I hate doing that because I usually hate it because, okay, there's another job that I have to do. And then you have to balance it out. Oh, which one is more important? Which one benefits me the most or benefits them? And then it's about the cause, because some people are NGOs.
Yep.
And, you don't want to, there's this moral obligation as well. It's like, oh man, there's this. But yeah, that's my, like how I went through all that.
I tend to have that inner conflict as well. Like, I don't want to turn down some jobs or some jobs that have a meaningful cause.
Yeah.
But what I do is that I remind myself, mate, you're a business, so you have to prioritize the business and make sure that the business is healthy. But then busy is good because that means that there's demand, and with demand, it comes the opportunity to control pricing as well. So there you go.
And then you can't really help anyone if you can't help yourself. Like if you're low and you're trying to help someone else to become,
I'm learning how to say no more, which is really a really hard thing to do,
especially when you're at the start. I mean, for me, like I said, I was just saying yes to all these jobs,
but
even though I didn't have the skill set.
It's usually smart, because when you're starting out, you should say yes to a lot of jobs in order to just grow and to build you want to build your reputation and to build your portfolio and just get the word out that you exist and you're doing this. And then as demand grows, it should force you to say no to certain things and certain customers.
And going back to that code switch and trying to adjust yourself to different people, it really shows in my social media, because I have 3 accounts. And that's
how do you manage that?
Right? Because this is art, and then there's my personal, and there's this other one. So it's like personal, and then like on my personal, I'm like very cautious about what I post now, because it does reflect my art in some way. So balancing that out and balancing your personas.
I try to separate my personas. I want my personal to be personal, like to be like my goofy self, and then my business pages and to be as sound as professional as possible. And I try to limit the mix. Like if people reach out on my personal for like business inquiries, I'm like, please email me, please. I try to forward them, because I just want that separation in my life.
Do you think it's like a good thing to have that duality?
Yes, it is. It's definitely. Otherwise you don't have a life. And otherwise you're going to have to stay in character forever. And otherwise you put yourself in a I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself to be the brand ambassador for your business. And then if you don't have that separation, do you really have a life?
Exactly.
Are you a person who has a brand, or are you a brand who happens to be a person?
And then there's this other thing of like your logo is not your brand. Like your brand is like a totally different like
branding is another thing that we can talk about.
Like it's another skill set that you have to create. Yeah, exactly. So my branding as well, and I'm always like curious as to what people think about my art and how they see it and how like it affects them. So like branding is also very important.
But it's also 2 ways. There is a ways that you can, if you use branding, you can influence the way that your audience thinks about you, and then, or you can use what they think about you as their feedback to then alter and to tailor your brand. That's why it's important, I think, to separate, because your brand can be one thing. And then you can be separate. You can live a separate life.
Of course.
And then you can just switch in and out. For me personally, I think that's healthy.
Yeah. I mean, it's really helping.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just your brand everywhere you go. You go to the market, to the shop. And what if you're not in a good mood that day? And they'll be like, oh, we're not going to do business because he, switched off.
Exactly.
That's how I see things. So that separation to me is very important.
Exactly. And then it also gives you that space to set boundaries for yourself.
Yeah.
Like as an artist, like, because you separated that, you like have the opportunity to say, okay, this is not my time to work. I'm like, it's I'm off the clock right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I had to learn as well. I used to be available at all times. And then I was like, no, I can't be. I have to put boundaries. I have to reply. There are some days that I will reply an email the night before, but I'll schedule it to the next day. So it's like I'm sending it on the next day. It's just to be like, you contact me during business hours. So that, again, it's just so that I can... Yeah, you can schedule emails,
And then just about the business hours and being on the clock. As a creative, people don't really see it that way. It's just like, oh, they work anytime.
Exactly.
So sometimes people send you emails at like 11 at night, and I'm like,
yeah. And I think a lot of SMEs do that as well. And sometimes I see that, like I've seen a couple of like graphic designers. They offer in the service 24-hour availability, and I'm like, dude, how do you have a life? Like, how do you function?
Exactly, because you really do need time for yourself as a creative. Yeah,
it's important. And like, I think because like you're young and you're free, but there's some people who have families, and there's some people who it's a side gig, like they have a main gig, and like, how do you balance all of this life? The answer to that is just to set boundaries, which is really hard.
Yeah.
But I think that's the joy of this journey of entrepreneurship and just running these creative businesses, because it's not so much as growing as a creative, as an artist. For me personally, I'm growing as a person, and I often look back of who I was, because when I started, I was just like, I had no idea about running the business and doing all this stuff. But then I started to pick up the books and started to, listen to the podcast, watch the interviews, take the courses, and then I started to watch my skill set grow. And I've met other people who've met me, and they'll be like, yo, you're a totally different person. And inside of me, I feel that gratification that, yes, I'm supposed to be different, because like I've had to change and had to evolve.
Yeah.
To be, I think that's the part of the journey that a lot of people don't consider or don't even think about. It's just not a flow of our creativity. It's like we're just the business side of it, and all of that is a beast of its own. But the beauty of it is that anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn business. Anybody can learn how to communicate, can negotiate, learn how to sales. It's all there. And you don't even have to have a degree to have it. Like there have been people who just been homeless and then they become millionaires just from the basic business principles.
And going back to what you were saying about, having that life and being a totally different person other than your art or your, your other persona. It's also good to have that, because you need a pause button at some point. Yeah. Because right now I haven't hit that pause.
You're still going. You're still running on.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this podcast, and I really appreciate it, because I haven't had time to process everything that I've done this year. Because it's like, okay, I have to do things. I have to get to a position, and I have to be, happy with myself by the end.
Exactly.
And it's like, sometimes it's unrealistic, the expectations you set on yourself, because you're an artist. So it's a totally different realm. It's a niche, and you have to just make it.
Would you agree that it's not the expectations that other people put on you, but the expectations that you put on yourself that you struggle with the most?
Yeah, it's exactly. It's like, and then it's usually, sometimes it's both as well, because like they add more to it. Yeah. And then it just like, it becomes so toxic for yourself too. And then you just have to keep on moving and moving. And most times I confuse movement for progress for myself. It's like,
some people, like there's a common saying, they mistake business for productivity. Exactly. You can be busy and you cannot be productive. It's not the same thing.
Exactly. And like, this has affected my mental health as well. Like not in a bad way or a negative way. It's just like, I see things totally different now, because going into from high school to university, my mindset was like, okay, 9 to 5. I have to do this degree, get a certificate, do my 9 to 5, and that's it. And that's life. Everything else will be just a side gig. So when it came to like now doing it all creatively and like putting all my cards down for it, I'm seeing things so differently. And I'm like,
is it what you expected, or is it greater than what you expected?
It's greater than what I expected. I understood what it was like to be an artist, like not fully, but like I had a good perception of it. But now it's like, oh man, like there's so much I have to adjust to constantly. And it's great too, because I love it. Like I love how it feels to just be on the move all the time and just like having to adjust yourself and grow. And it feels good. So by the end of the year, I would just want to just like sit back and like, okay, I did this. And it's just good to like pat yourself on the back sometimes. Yeah.
I think a lot of us fail to do that, especially me. I know that I'm always on the go. There's always a goal I have to achieve.
Exactly.
And then when I don't achieve it, then I kind of spiral. And then for me, like it's just been very confronting for me. I remember one time I had a really rough patch. And I was like really doubting myself and really thinking whether I ought to continue in the business or to abandon it altogether. And I remember this question was asked, who are you without the business? Like, what is your identity? Like, if your business failed and if you didn't do this anymore, who are you, Chan? And then that led me into like this, I had to take a good look. It's like, okay, who am I as a person? Is this business everything? Is this my one and all? Like, what happens if it fails? I'll still live. It's just, something. So I had to learn. It was in that moment that I was coaching myself to deal with failure and to not really anticipate failure, but like if that things don't work out, I'm being okay. This may not be the only business I run. I know I should pat my back for coming this far. And if this one burns up and smokes and flames, I still have I can learn what I've learned from that experience and start something else. So in the end, it's a win-win.
Adding on to that, when I came out of uni and came straight into doing the creative stuff, like I said, the adjusting was so hard. Like seeing, because when you're in like an institution, your idea of success is already set.
Yes.
It's reaching a goal by this age.
And on that note, there's not a lot of people to look up to. So you're kind of just pioneering it as well. Yeah,
exactly. Like even though there's like, I mean, we're all surrounded by creatives here, but like there's still like for yourself personally, there's a perception of success. And like going through this year, I've just like started to redefine my definition of success. Right?
Yeah, that was important. That's an important step
because
as well.
Like you'll beat yourself up. Like if I get to like 25 years old and I'm not reaching my goals yet. Like, will I be happy with myself or like, cause you see all these other successful people. I mean, like,
and that's where the issues come as well. A lot of the conflict is like, I'm not as successful as that person.
Exactly.
What is wrong with me?
Comparison is a thief of joy. Yeah.
And that's the thing with this whole social media that I have to remind myself, it's all glitz and glamour. It's all, everybody's posting their highlight reels, but we don't know what people, like, especially people who are very successful now, we don't know the struggles that they've been through, that they've overcome.
And most of these people started late.
Exactly.
In their life. Like,
well, some people started way earlier, and then they just, just grinded and everything started to work out for them and they are where they are and, we applaud them. But sometimes we compare and then we feel really bad about ourselves.
It reflects in our work too. Like we only post things that we're satisfied with, that we're done with. We only post it when like, okay, this looks good. I'll post it. I'll put it out there. Everything else, all the rough stuff, all the rough pictures that photographers take, they don't post that stuff.
Yeah.
They post
even I don't post my sketches as well.
Sketches, like my sketches look like I have never done art before. Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's good. I like on that note of like taking a step back to look. I recently met someone who gave me like this advice. He just told me like, you look at it, you're just up close looking at the elephant and you only see the wrinkles and you only see the creases and scars and you're like, oh no, it has to be like this. But you need to but when you take a step out and have a look at the animal, you're staring like the magnificence of an elephant and you start to admire the tongue. It's like the difference between looking at a tree and an entire forest. You can be so picky with that one tree, but if you take a step back and look at the entire forest, you can appreciate it.
Yeah.
And he gave me that advice and I felt like really comforted. It's like, what, I'm a bit too hard on myself sometimes. Exactly. I think I need to just take a step back and just like, hey, I've done this for so many years or I've done this much and I've achieved it to a certain point. Why not take a break? And sometimes I feel life is going to put a break to just tell you like, you just need to slow down for a minute.
Yeah. And there's a struggle of finding that equilibrium, that balance, right? Because obviously you don't want to take a step back until you fall down and just not get up. You want to just have enough time, give yourself some space, and then move on. Yeah.
The challenge is not to quit; it's to rest and just to.
And there's a difference between.
It's just to. You don't always have to always go. Sometimes you have to reverse in order to move forward, and that's okay. It's okay to have those moments and to keep going. I think everybody, and that's the thing that I find very reassuring. Every time I'm up against the wall with something like an obstacle or something that I think I will never recover from, or I think something's wrong with me or how I'm running things. And then I Google like other entrepreneurs and other successful people, and
it's always good to research.
And they all say the same things. They've had those moments where they were just like down to their luck. They thought they were down and out, and then things suddenly turn around. One of the books that I've read is called The Dip by Seth Godin, and he describes success as like a roller coaster. So basically it starts off, everybody starts off, it's the curve of like mastery. So it starts off really good. You get the excitement, you get the motivation, and then you reach a certain peak, and then there's a downward curve. It's called the dip. And the dip is the defining moment, whether you're going to take all that is coming against you. That's when you're going to doubt yourself. You're going to be broke, or you're going to face the toughest setbacks and obstacles. But it is in that dip that you either continue, or it's make or break. You either continue and you can push through the dip, because after the dip comes the surge. And then he used people like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Apple, everybody who are where they are. Every company, every person who's been successful has encountered a dip. So whenever I'm at a low point and I'm thinking something is wrong, I often remember that book. It's like, you just think of it as a dip, that if you keep pushing on, keep doing what you're doing, believing, like belief is so important as well. Sooner or later, there'll be a surge. And then that's where things will it won't get easier. You'll just get better.
You just get better at managing everything.
Yeah. It's good. It's good that we're talking about mindset. Mindset
is a very honest conversation. I appreciate it.
That's why I started this podcast. This is what I want to hear, because when I did like the artist features on Instagram, I asked people to give advice, and some of the advice just reflected the level of thinking that was so deep. I was like, I need to have conversations with these people. Like, it wasn't just, never give up, don't stop. They were like, no, if you take a look inside, like, it was very deep.
Exactly.
I was like, man, these people like reading Stoicism or like some sort of philosophy. But it was that, that's basically what led me to start this podcast. Is I just wanted to have these conversations to know that it's kind of normal. Like, I think that a lot of people see struggling as not normal or something wrong. It's like, no, it's normal. Like,
happens every day.
You're going to have bad days. You're going to have days where people are going to say no to you and they're going to reject you. And you're not going to grow as fast as you want to grow.
Exactly.
That's normal. That's part of the journey.
It's part of the human
experience. But if you focus on the destination, you're going to find the tension. But if you focus on the next step and what you're learning on the way, I think that's valuable. Because whether or not you reach your destination or not, it's who you're becoming. That's the cream of it. So that's what I look back and I look up to just on my journey, I just reflect, wait, it's not about what I'm achieving. It's not about achieving. It's about who am I becoming? And I'm constantly asking myself, like, who am I becoming? What is this situation teaching me? And
it's constant.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how that's going to look on my art, because I haven't really created any art recently. I've been busy doing a lot of stuff.
Creating other things, which is great.
I'm living the dream. I'm living the dream.
That's great.
But I was feeling really awkward as well. Like, I'm taking a pause. I should keep, everybody tells you the algorithm, to get the follows.
I keep seeing that on TikTok. Like, you got to follow this new strategy.
Exactly.
There's an
like
update.
You got to post 2 times a day, like all of that. And I was like, man, this is so exhausting.
I feel like that was part of the reason I stopped. Like, I really slowed down with my TikToks. Like, I kept seeing all these like new updates and things that you have to follow and what time to post and whatnot. And it just got shoved in my face until I was like, you know what?
Yeah, I also had the same. I think what really kind of annoyed me and made me just pause is like, I don't want to create art for likes. I don't want to create art for followers. I like to do what resonates with people is when I create stuff for me and I put it out there. And if they like it, they like it. If they don't,
you could easily create something that's trendy and it would take off.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I've noticed when I've really created something for the gram, it performs poorly. But when I'm in my zone and I just create something with no intention or no expectations, I post it, it usually performs really, really well. So I'm like, okay, good. Sometimes just pull back. It's not always about the likes, the follows. Sometimes it's just, I think, I don't know, one of the quotes that I've been really meditating upon is by Jim Rohn. He says that success is not something you attract, something that you chase. It's something you attract by the person that you become. And there's another saying that says that you don't go chasing butterflies, you make a garden and then the butterflies come.
To you. Yeah.
So I've been like really meditating and stewing that. It's like, okay, if I want to achieve all of these goals, maybe let me change my strategy. Instead of trying to chase, who do I need to become? What do I need to learn to know, just to have all these things being attracted to me? So,
and manifest it.
And like because that's how I started. Like I have very similar story with you, how we started. Like it just blew up. You just put out work out there and stuff. And it wasn't an intention. Like it wasn't intentional. I didn't start this with the intention of starting a business. It just became that. And I kind of missed that feeling in a way. It's like, okay, let me go back to the roots and just
that's a stage
let things flow, don't force, don't flow.
That's a stage that even though I'm like doing all these projects, I'm still in like that discovery stage, and I love it.
Yeah, that's fun
because I'm still trying to discover what I can do with my talents.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's why I'm loving the podcast as well, because it's an opportunity for me to learn. I'm learning about like audio setup, and I'm learning cameras and
considering all the years you've done, it's like it just shows that like you can always grow, you can always learn from other people. No matter how long you've done it.
That's what and that's a core value of mine. I must grow, personal growth, personal development. I would rather grow than that to me, that's success to me. If I'm not progressing, if I'm not trying something, if I'm not learning, I'm not growing. What's the point of living? Yeah. That's my life philosophy, if you can put it that way. So I'm very excited to see where this journey is leading me. I'm very excited to see where you go, because you've just started.
I have just,
and you've my just blown on. Like I told Dan as well, like when I read his comics, it's just, I'm excited for what's next, because what we're doing now, I think for me as well, is just everything that has been from then till now has just been us experimenting, learning what works, what doesn't work, and then constantly refining until we get to the point where things start to become systematic and they start to flow, and then just the mastery starts to kick in. It's exciting. And then pioneering and then creating and trailing a blaze for other people who we don't know are actually looking up to us and learning from us, and being inspired by us, what they're going to create after us. And because we've set a platform, not only that, but what we're doing is honoring those who have come before us as well. Exactly. And I like to remind myself, like, we are nothing without the people who have really slogged on and who've done the groundwork for us. Because they could, we can, and because we can, others behind us can as well.
Exactly.
And it's an exciting time to be a creative right now.
Very
exciting.
Very,
very
so
much exciting.
To do now.
There's so many of us.
Exactly.
That's why I love. And especially when I started, like, people started, like, digital art became a thing and became an art form. And it's everywhere.
And that's part of the reason why I joined Art Activism, is because it brings all these people together, all these artists, even young or old. It creates that environment that is suitable for us to create. Yeah. Exactly.
And I think that's great as well. And that's what I hope for the podcast as well, is that to bring other creatives. Because when I started the artist feature, it only featured digital artists.
Exactly.
But for this platform, I want to bring in, and I have brought in, like, the photographers, and I want to bring in some musicians, not only just creatives, but also people in the media industry as well, like journalists and cameramen and radio announcers, like everybody. Just to let everybody know that, like the normal path of going to uni and then getting a job and then starting a profession, like, there's other alternatives. And maybe you're not an academic, but you're a creative, then, there's outlets as well. And this is becoming something growing in the country.
Yes.
And hopefully, big hope that this just pushes people where they need to be. And the fact that we're achieving so much as well, so young and still in the early days, like, the best is yet to come.
Of course.
It's exciting days ahead. Yeah. Do you have anything else to say? I think we're going to wrap up now. You've said so much.
If I were to rank my art forms, I would put acting at the top, because that is something I still want to pursue in the future. That is something, everything else that I'm doing is like a, we
didn't even talk about your acting. It's okay. So we'll save that for another episode.
It's like a building block. And then, like, everything I'm doing is like a building block. And then obviously there's the graphic art and the painting and the sketching and all that. But because I've seen so much of this growth in myself and in my art, I'm pursuing it more. But the ultimate goal for me and the future for me is that I want to become an actor. And like, be on screen and show Papua New Guineans, young Papua New Guineans, how, like, someone who looks like them is on screen as well, and inspire them. As for my art and as for Son of Ashes, I'm going to keep doing it. In the future, I want to create something that is more communal and brings more artists into it, as you're doing. And I think that's the most fulfilling thing that we can do as artists as well, is to grow other artists. And if I were to say something to any artists out there, especially young ones. Keep doing what you're doing. Never stop. Like we said, you can listen to it all again, all the dips and the breaks and the ups and downs. As long as you keep pursuing it and you keep manifesting that talent, whatever it is, whatever talent you have, something will surely come of it. And we'll be here waiting for you and to take your hand and give you that pull. Yeah. Thank you.
So one final thing, where can people find you?
Where can people find me? You can find me on TikTok and on Instagram. That is where I'm at right now, and that's where I get most of my jobs. When you go on my Instagram, you can find my email and my link tree. Yeah, that's basically it. Or you can talk
What's
to a
your
friend.
handle? @Son of Ashes?
Just Son of Ashes. I'm so glad that I'm the only one who has that. And I didn't have any difficulties. I just typed it in. It was there. But yes, Son of Ashes on TikTok and on Instagram. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Son of Ashes, for coming and joining me on today's episode. Well, that's a wrap. A lot has been said, and thank you so much.
A lot has been said.
I'm just going to say thank you until the time runs out and Jerry's like, shut up, Jan, we got to wrap it up. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. And I want to say thank you to the audience. If you're listening or you watched so far, thank you so much for your time and your attention. I would like to say thank you to the official sponsor of this podcast, without whom none of this would happen. I want to say thank you to the Smart Hills Corporate Solutions. You can find out more information at www.smarthills.com.pg. I also want to say thank you to my crew for today, Oswald, Jerry, Judah, and MK. Thank you so much for helping me put all of this together and put it out there. And yes, please subscribe to all our socials and all the channels, the Shawk23 Podcast. And that's all from me. To all my fellow creatives, dream big, stay weird, and remember, with belief, all things are possible. I'm Shawk23. Aparua.